Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. How y'all doing? Welcome to the channel. It's your girl, Philly Phil, aka PP. All right, we're gonna do a little social justice news real quick. Get you guys caught up on a few things you may have already heard about it. But there's a few things going on in the news, and I just want to talk about it. Okay, and then we may do a little Ben Crump.
They tried to kill democracy. They tried to expel the people's choice and the people's vote. And they awakened a sleeping giant. They put Gloria Johnson and Justin Jones and me on trial. But they ended up putting themselves on trial. The people's verdict is back. Guilty. Guilty of white supremacy. Guilty of patriarchy. Guilty of supporting the NRA over people. Guilty of attacking the poor. Guilty of not expanding health care. Guilty of not giving us educational resources. Guilty, guilty, guilty. We don't build this movement. We don't build this movement.
All right, guys. So let's just get started here. Jackson, Mississippi has been in the news. They are changing laws down there to I think it is the largest African American city in the state of Mississippi. And they are just trying to take over. And when I say they, I mean the minority who wants to be the majority. Okay. All right, here we go here. Let's see. Mississippi governor signs the bill expanding state control over Jackson's judicial system and policing. Yes, that's what they're doing. Let's see what this young man here had to say.
I really want to ask you about something that could also affect Jackson. It's a Mississippi bill that would give the state control to appoint unelected judges and prosecutors for the part of your city where the vast majority of white residents live. And then the people who would make those appointments are also white, even though Jackson is 83% black. What is your reaction to this bill?
Well, I think that, we would be.
Now, how is that even possible? Judges are always elected by the people. What is going on in Mississippi? Jackson, to be specific. Oh my. Now is the time for brothers and sisters to stand together.
Be less than honest if we called it anything other than racist. It is fraught with constitutional issues, and it is an attack on Black leadership. It is brought under the Trojan horse of public safety, but it is a district which is largely comprised of the areas that have the lowest crime rates. Those judges not only would have the power, those unelected judges would not only have the power to hear criminal matters, but civil and chancery matters as well, which have nothing whatsoever to do with crime and public safety. And so it is truly an attack on Black leadership.
In 2021, the Washington Post found that Jackson had the highest murder rate in the country, 3 times that of Chicago. Republicans argue this bill is meant to address the growing crime problem. What do you think will lower the crime rate?
Yeah. Well, they would first have to acknowledge the things that I just said.
No, they're just trying to seize power and take it out of the hands of the people. That's why we go to the polls. We have always elected the judges. Okay? Other than the Supreme Court judges. Come on, somebody.
If your true intention is to deal with the crime rate, then you wouldn't.
And I know there are other judges that the president actually appoints. Okay? I want to make that note.
Choose the safest portions of the city in order to create this district. Secondly, there has been a deliberate indifference or a willful neglect of state leadership to support the things that we've been asking for, things that help support our police department, technology, ballistics technology that help them close cases, connect guns to prior crimes, support of our real-time command center, which is a 21st century technology that supports our police officers, support in the vein of credible messenger and violence interruption training that we've been asking for. Where the state has been neglectful, we've had organizations like the National League of Cities and Wells Fargo Bank to step up to the plate and provide resources so that we can start an Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery. Jackson residents, those of us who work on these issues every day, know what we need. And what we don't need is a takeover of our city and a plan in order to protect the most densely white populated portions of our city.
The bill sponsor, who is Representative Trey Lamar, he represents a rural area quite far from Jackson. He says, quote, "My constituents want to feel safe when they come here. Where I am coming from with this bill is to help the citizens of Jackson." What's your reaction to that?
And then the thing is, they just be lying right in your face, like you're too stupid to recognize it. Oh my goodness. I do believe this bill, if passed, and I do believe it may have already been signed. It will be, I think, they'll probably take it to Washington, appealing it. They should. They really should.
Well, my reaction is, first, Trey Lamar has not done his due diligence to either talk to me, any other leadership in Jackson, or the residents of Jackson. I even find individuals who live within the proposed district who are opposed to it, both Democrat and Republican. Some that are opposed to this court system and know the lack of equity and justice that it sets the stage for. And so, while it is his capital city and everyone's capital city, it is our home. And we will be the most adversely affected by these decisions. And so once again, it's a Trojan horse in order to take over, seize power where it cannot be seized electorally. They want to pass policy that can take over our city.
Mayor, thank you so much. We'll be watching to see what happens with this Mississippi bill, and we appreciate your time tonight.
Okay, and now let's just read up on what I guess a little bit about the law. It says the state will also establish a new 911 call center to answer calls within CCID. The governor had previously expressed his support for the measure, which passed in the state's House of Representatives last month with a 72-41 vote. These Republicans in these southern states with the super majorities, I tell you, look what happened to Tennessee, but they were fortunate enough to get reinstated. I says critics previously said the measure would put mostly white conservative state officials in control of much of a city where more than 80% of the residents are Black and is a majority Democratic city. I mean, how is this even possible? How is this even possible? Oh my goodness. And I think that was it on that. So I'm going to stop sharing that. All right, let's go to our next story. Okay, as you all know, former President Donald Trump has been found liable for the woman, I think her name is Jean. She said that he wasn't found guilty of rape, but he was found liable, and I think $5 million, but they're probably going to appeal. So let's just see what they had to say.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Norah O'Donnell in Washington. We are coming on the air with news about former President Donald Trump, as a jury in New York has found that Trump sexually abused and defamed E. Jean Carroll and awarded her $5 million in damages. This was a civil case there that went on for the past 2 weeks. It was a quick verdict. They just started deliberating this morning. The jury also finding that Trump did not rape Carroll, but that he is liable for battery and for defamation. Want to bring in Elaine Quijano, who is there and has been covering this trial. Elaine?
Well, Nora, it took this jury of 6 men and 3 women less than 3 hours to reach its decision against the former president of the United States, finding him liable, as you said, for sexual abuse and defamation. Now, E. Jean Carroll, the writer, had alleged that Donald Trump had raped her in a New York City department store dressing room in 1996. That is a claim that Donald Trump repeatedly denied during the...
I'm not laughing at RAPE because that is definitely a serious thing. But Donald Trump, I just believe the man is a pervert, and I do believe he did something like that. I'm sorry, but it was just in 1996.
Trial, Carol had said that she was too shaken at the time to
Allegedly.
report that to police, something that Trump's defense attorney, Joe Tacopina, had questioned. That attorney also had pressed Carol on why she could not remember the exact date of the alleged assault and suggested that she only came forward in order to sell more copies of her autobiography. Now, for his part, the former president had been given the opportunity to testify during this trial here.
But you guys, if you remember, when he was running for president, he was caught on an EXS Hollywood recording where he said that, when you're famous, men, you can grope women and do things to women and grab them and kiss them and get away with it because you're famous. So this is pretty much what he was accused of doing. And that's why I believe it. And so did the jury.
And even suggested as recently as last week that he would cut his trip overseas short in order to do that. His attorney saying in closing arguments, though, after the former president declined to appear, his former attorney said he has no story to tell other than denying her claim. But Nora, as you said, a surprisingly quick decision by this jury. I can tell you that the instructions to the jury this morning from the judge were quite lengthy. It was 10 questions on this verdict form that the jury had to consider. Clearly, unanimity seemed to be something that was with this group from the start, given just how quickly this decision came.
Elaine Quijano, thank you. Yes, a remarkably quick verdict from this jury. And this is the first time in history that a former president of the United States has been found liable for.
Now, just imagine if that had happened to Barack Obama, our first African-American president. Oh, my goodness. Even if he had been out of office and found liable, they would probably be doing something to ban him from ever serving in any type of a capacity anywhere. Can't run for president again, but for anything political. I'm just saying there'd be a new law being passed. Y'all know it.
Sexual assault and battery. Former President Trump, as Elaine noted, did not testify. However, Roberta Kaplan, the attorney for E. Jean Carroll, said that Trump was a witness against himself, in part because of that defamation tape that many of us have seen, in which the president talked about not only the Access Hollywood tape, where he boasted in the past about grabbing a woman in her sexual parts,
right,
as well as confusing who E. Jean Carroll was. Remember, the defense of Donald Trump was that E. Jean Carroll was not his type. He wouldn't have raped someone like that. And yet this picture, when he was shown this picture, that's E. Jean Carroll there on the left-hand side. He thought it was Marla Maples, his ex-wife. He seemed confused when he was then pointed out, even by his own attorney, that no, that's the accuser, E. Jean Carroll. Then he said, well, it's blurry. But as Roberta Kaplan, the attorney, said, Trump lied. That picture wasn't blurry. Let's bring in CBS News legal analyst Ricky.
One thing Trump always said, guys, is that he'll never admit. He says he'll never admit to anything. And he'll tell you, he will never admit to it. He will just straight out lie. And which is what he just did.
Kleeman, I know, Ricky, you have been covering this trial from the beginning. Your take about how this jury was able to deliberate so quickly.
Well, there was only really one question for this jury, Nora, and that was, did they believe E. Jean Carroll? And when you look at E. Jean Carroll's testimony, you're really looking at the testimony not only of one woman, you're looking at the testimony of 5 women. Because what you have is the plaintiff, E. Jean Carroll, and her story about what she says happened to her around 1996. But you're also looking at 2 what we call fresh complaint witnesses, people she told right at that particular time. And you're also looking with 2 other victims who told a very similar story, not only to E. Jean Carroll, but it is the story of the Access Hollywood tape. It's precisely the same story 3 times. So the worst witness against Donald Trump was Donald Trump, because they had the Access Hollywood tape, as you pointed out, and in his own deposition, it was really somewhat of a disaster when you have someone who says, if you're a star, fortunately, you can do what I talked about. And those are the kind of statements
I told y'all that's what he said. He believes that if you're rich and famous and powerful, that you can get away with doing whatever you want, having your way with the woman. Some men are just chauvinistic pigs. I mean, it is what it is. They talk about women any type of a way. They call them out of their names, all types of vulgar words. Some men will do that and think that it's okay. That's why we have to stick together.
Where a jury could not possibly see that 5 women were lying. Real issue, Nora, is how much money.
That's right. And as we're hearing right now, it could be about $5 million that the former president liable for. I do want to ask you, though, Ricky, they did find him not liable for rape, but they did find him liable for sexual battery. What does that mean?
Well, it could mean a lot of things, Nora. It could mean that there was a compromise in the jury room about what actually happened, about how they thought about.
And from my previous and prior experience as being a juror, when she says a compromise, I keep hitting the wrong button. When she says a compromise, she's meaning that, there were some jurors in there that just didn't want to find him guilty for rape. And then there was others that probably did. And so they came together and collectively they decided upon that specific charge. But they did award her $5 million, because when you're in there deliberating as jurors, you'll get together and you'll start saying, well, I don't think this was it. What about this? And that other charge was something that they were allowed to find him guilty of. It's not something that they just created themselves.
Her description, she was very, very emphatic about the use of finger and the pain that it caused. And a lot of her memories were about that finger. Now, in many jurisdictions, that kind of penetration of the vagina by a finger would also be considered rape. But perhaps this jury felt differently. There is no doubt that they saw and heard enough.
I had not listened to this full video. My, Donald Trump is a hot mess.
To say, well, perhaps it wasn't rape for all kinds of extraneous reasons. But nonetheless, they felt that one question down, they could find it a sexual abuse. They didn't go further down the list of the judges' included offenses, as we lawyers would say. But sexual battery is a forcible touching plus more.
And Ricky, we should note, too, this is a civil case, not a criminal case. And so the burden of proof is different. Explain.
In a criminal case, the burden of proof is to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a huge burden. As I often say on the scales of justice, it's right at the top of the scales that you would have to believe the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. So if you suspected, if you get, that wasn't enough. But in a civil case, the burden is preponderance of the evidence. Nora, that's like putting a feather on the scales of justice. It's about 51%.
It's an excellent way to describe it. Ricky Kleeman, thank you so much for your expertise. Want to bring in our chief Washington correspondent, Major Garrett. And Major, Donald Trump is running for president again. What is the political effect of this?
So not only is Donald Trump running for the Republican nomination, he's the front runner. He's right now the undisputed front runner. And by all polling data measured.
So pretty much the Republicans voters really want to vote this man back in as president, as their nominee for president, although he's been found guilty of sexual battery, and the jury has awarded her $5 million. They still want him. My.
Recently, a very, very strong, likely Republican nominee. The political effect of this will come out over time, but this trial was, in fact, a character sketch of the former president. And his attorney said, you could say that former President Trump is rude and crude, but he didn't do these specific things. Also arguing, by implication, these would be out of character for the former president. The jury did not agree with that. The jury said, as a matter of fact, based on all the things presented to us, this is precisely the character. Now, those on the political side of former President Trump would say, you know what? That was adjudicated in the 2016 election. The country looked at this character sketch and said, you know what? It's okay. We'll elect him president. That character sketch now comes back with very real procedures in a legal courtroom and an assignment of a fine against former President Trump. So that character question now is raised in a very different context. And
you know, in order to run for president, there should be a law that says if you have been found guilty of some type of a sexual offense, liable or whatever, then you just can't be our president. I'm sorry. Okay.
There's been a proceeding, an adversarial one, where Donald Trump had every opportunity to defend himself in person, looking at across that courtroom at Eugene Carroll. He did not do that. His attorneys did not want him to do that. So the character sketch that emerges from this civil proceeding will have real political impact.
Donald Trump's attorneys will no doubt appeal this particular ruling, but this is the first time that a jury has found former president of the United States liable for sexual abuse and battery in this case. And as has been noted, this in many ways, in addition to a character test, this was also a matchup between two different types of attorneys, where Donald Trump didn't show up. Joe Tacopina, his attorney, didn't present much of a defense. And in fact, really the only evidence out there was Donald Trump's own deposition, which ended up being quite damning.
As Ricky Kleeman pointed out, the former president said, fortunately or unfortunately, but that fortunately word hangs out there predominantly. Fortunately, for years and years, the former president said millions of years, it clearly wasn't that long, men have been allowed to get away with this. Fortunately?
By grabbing a woman,
yes, in an unwanted battery.
So Donald Trump said that fortunately, men have been allowed for many, many years to get away with grabbing and groping and doing things to women that they know are wrong. Talking about them any types of a way, calling them B's and H's. Well, he was found liable, honey. $5 million.
Type aggressive way.
He almost admitted to it.
Precisely. And in 2016, I remember it well. I covered it hour by hour by hour. It was still kind of an abstraction. Oh, he talks this way. He said it was locker room talk. He would never act this way.
The Access Hollywood tape.
Yes. That's not the context any longer. A jury looking at all the facts said, no, that probably did happen. Was it rape? We have no way of knowing that for sure, but we know something bad. Something unwarranted and unwanted, unwelcome happened. And then the former president lied about it. That's the defamation part of it. Oh, and to compound the factual inaccuracies perpetuated by this former president, this morning on social media, he said he was unconstitutionally silenced in this proceeding. That is a complete lie.
He didn't show up?
He was given every opportunity. The judge provided 3 more days in case the former president wanted to testify. That's not unconstitutional silencing. That is a strategy that failed.
And then, see, he lies about it. He was unconstitutionally silenced. He didn't want to testify. So some men will know that they're wrong, and women. Some people will know that they're wrong and just straight up lie in your face and try and make you believe an entirely new scenario. And unfortunately, there are some weak people that sometimes believe the lie, even though they know the truth. But this jury,
it really is an interesting case in many ways because the attorney, Roberta Kaplan, for E. Jean Carroll, who is quite skilled, pointed out that Trump lied multiple times. He had said, I never met E. Jean Carroll, but then there was the picture, and then he confused her with his ex-wife, Marla Maples. Trump said, well, I'd never been to Bergdorf Goodman's, the department store in New York. And Roberta Kaplan said, well, he lied because we've got someone testifying that he frequently visited the store. Trump lied when he said that the photo was blurry. Here, look at the photo. It's quite clear. Anybody can see there. It's a clear picture. So it was, again, in many ways, saying that Trump cannot be believed in this case. And that is usually sometimes the one who makes the accusation is not believed.
Precisely. The forcefulness of the former president's denials evaporated up against all of his other misrepresentations and inaccuracies and strategic lies.
Major Garrett, thank you. And just to recap, a jury in New York has found former President Donald Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation in a civil case, awarding the former columnist E. Jean Carroll nearly $5 million in damages. I want to thank Elaine Cajano and Ricky Kleeman. Our coverage will continue on CBS News Streaming.
Okay, and so that was all on that story. Donald Trump was found liable. Okay, and the jury demands that he pay her $5 million. Now, will he ever pay that? That remains to be seen. All right, let me pull up the next.
And sisters, we've learned to fly the air like birds. We've learned to swim the seas like fish.
All right, we're going to take a look here at, of course, how the people's attorney, being Crump's social media page. Let me see, what's the best way to put it? We're going to do it like that. His Instagram page.
Department disputing today's claims made by the family and attorneys for Rasheem Carter that more of his remains may have been found. The Smith County Sheriff's Department says the fourth set of remains were bones found on a property in Simpson County and not in the area of where Carter's remains were discovered. Deputies add that Simpson County has sent its findings to the Mississippi Crime Lab for examination. We want to warn you now that some of the video you'll see soon may be disturbing. Well, this contradicts claims made by attorney Ben Crump and the family of the 25-year-old. They say a bystander told them about a fourth set of remains found in Smith County. Previously, officials discovered a severed skull, a spinal cord, and more bones. Crump says the bystander recorded the video of two officers discovering what appears to be an arm bone and a hand attached. Crump believes the remains belong to Carter. The official identity has not been confirmed. Carter's mom says all of this has been overwhelming from the start.
No excuse for bystanders coming, showing video to the family, and the officials not having the dignity and respect to notify the family immediately and say, we found more human remains in the vicinity where your son head and spinal cord and other bodily remains were found.
I'm a true believer, and I trust God wholeheartedly that what has been done to Rasheem Carter, every hand involved, God will deal with them accordingly.
The first set of remains were discovered about a month later, and officials have not made any arrest. Smith County Sheriff Joel Houston added, quote, "We will continue to pursue the truth with our state and federal partners, regardless of the misinformation and deception that continues to be produced to members of the public." Tonight.
Okay, this is happening out of Mississippi as well. It says Mississippi officials have found a fourth set of remains in the vicinity of where other sets of Rasheem Carter was found. While we await official notification of a positive identity on the remains, we ask that you all continue calling for justice for Rasheem. Yes, definitely justice for Rasheem. This is that is so sad. Let's see here. Now this here says Army Sergeant who fatally shot the BLM protester in Texas has been sentenced to 25 years. It says the U.S. Army Sergeant who fatally shot an armed protester at a July 2020 BLM protest has rightly been sentenced to 25 years in prison. Evidence at Daniel Perry's sentencing hearing showed that he had texted, "I might go to Dallas and shoot looters." And you can bank on this. If Trump were to become president again, he would certainly pardon this man. Unfortunately, he would. He's tried to do it before. John Lockett, former Morgan Stanley Regional Training Officer, New York, New Jersey. It says John Lockett was the only Black regional training officer at Morgan Stanley. Sadly, he was paid less than the white RTOs and witnessed management's racism against Black advisors. RTO's regional training officer. It says Morgan Stanley executives called African Americans boy and other racist nicknames. Managers said you can't take Black people off the streets and out of the projects and expect them to succeed. Morgan Stanley? How many of you have your money locked in with Morgan Stanley? It says, like others who bravely blew the whistle against Morgan Stanley discrimination when he spoke out, he was fired. When will Morgan Stanley own up to its wrongdoing? The link is in the bio. You all make sure you go to the People's Attorney, Ben Crump's Instagram page. All right, this says, thank you for the information. Can you share the organizations and or monopolies associated with Morgan Stanley? Let's choose not to do business with them. My, Morgan Stanley. John Lockett, he was the only African American, okay, regional training officer, but he was paid less than his Caucasian counterparts. How sad. Florida legislature approves bill to help restore historic black cemeteries. Okay. The new historic cemeteries program in Florida will help restore and maintain forgotten black cemeteries. This is a much needed piece of legislation that will bring back honor to many of the forgotten black communities in Florida. Yes, yes, yes. Isn't Rosewood? That was in Florida, right? And not Oklahoma. It says he's not signing this bill, but use me and I agree button if you want. He's not signing. Oh, they're probably saying the governor won't sign the bill. You know that Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida is just a hot mess. You know, my daughter lives in Jacksonville. I thought about moving there, but woo, let's see this.
There is a $50,000 reward out there. It's posted on Facebook and other social media platforms. Anybody that has good concrete information to lead to what happened to Rashid, what happened. They have good information to contact Mr. Crump's office. Just let them know what you know. And perhaps this $50,000, we are hurting. We are hurting so bad to know that my nephew went through what he went through. Last anybody, please help us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Somebody seen what happened to Rashid. We need them to come forward.
I'm his aunt. I'm Linda Davis. My brother is his grandfather, and he's going through some turmoil. His brother is having some experiences. Everybody's probably trying to seek help and seek counsel because it's just so hard. What bothers us most is that we know Rashid was there, and he called. We went in. He told his mom. He asked for help. They turned him away. But my thing is, law enforcement can go anywhere. If he told him that he could take him to put him with Lara, if he got to contact with Lara, well, we feel like they could have gotten him some assistance. Now the family wasn't sitting back. When he called his mom, she sent a ride for Rashid. When she got there, when the ride got there, Rashid was done. We were there that week. All of Harrison, Mississippi is community. We love him. He's a good child. He's got beer rights. He's educated. He's a good child. And we all went down with four-wheelers, traffic, truck. Taylorsville, nowhere in sight. Everywhere we stopped, they asked us, did y'all find anything? Do you know anything? When they told us his phone ping, we went over to Clear Creek or whatever they sent us off down in there. After we found his remains, say he on Highway 35, 37. So, you know, we got a lot that's going on. It's not a lot that's just not coming together. And I think somebody needs to just go on and just tell us what happened to William and why. Because he's not a person that's going to keep him in. He was hiding in the dollar store. Somebody called him. We see him running with a stick on the back, a big stick on his shoulder. He's looking back. He's trying to get away from something. That's obvious. So it wasn't that he died of no natural causes because he hadn't been out in the first place. And I know he didn't come down out of the woods and go places and then go back up in the woods and just die. So there's a lot that we have that's going on. And like Mornay, my family, and his mom, keep us in your prayers. If anyone hear anything, see anything, please let us know. But to me, we're going back further to the 60s. I came up with I'm almost 70 years old. I marched with Charles Hill, Martin Luther King. I know what this is about. Now, the young people, they don't understand. Sometimes I say the wrong thing or what you say it to, and they don't like it. But please just keep us in the way. We appreciate all of it.
So it says, Rasheem Carter aunt speaking truth to power. And they were outside and the wind was blowing, so I hope you guys could hear. It says there is a $50,000 reward for any substantial information leading to information and justice for Rasheem Carter. If you have any information, please contact Ben Crump's office and keep our family in your prayers. So there is a $50,000 reward that's being offered if anyone could come forward and help them find the people that actually did that to that young man and took his life. He went to the police. He tried to call his mom. He told them that somebody was after him. They didn't do anything. And now they took his life, severed his body, and it's just horrific. But justice is slow, but it is certain. And I do believe that family will get justice eventually, just like we will get justice for Kalitha Foley. All right, guys, thank you all for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed this news hour. We didn't go quite an hour, but we will next time. Thank you, guys, and make sure you hit the like button and share this video out. Talk to y'all soon.